as you see our banner behind, the Women Care Pay Us network here, and we're joining XR's The Big One today, and of course this is, as everyone knows, this is a big speak out that we're going to be having as part of the Unite to Survive Day, where there's lots of stuff happening all around here in Parliament, pickets and protests, and there are a number of people here who have been on demonstrations already this morning and will be able to let us know. But what we wanted to do is, we particularly, calling ourselves Women Care, we want to basically have today is a day of diverse networks of mothers, grandmothers and other carers and people with disabilities to speak out on refusing poverty, the devaluing of caring and cuts in our benefits. Because people may know, I'm sure many of you do, that the government wants to cut mothers and disabled people's benefits and force us back to work, regardless of the needs, wishes or poverty wages that we face, stealing our survival entitlements. Those benefits are our survival entitlements to enrich fossil fuel polluters and other destructive industries. And we wanted to make that visible as part of this Survival Day, the XR Big Survival Day. So we do welcome, people are going to be speaking out from this microphone too, and people have come from all over the country. We know Blackpool. Woo! Yes. The Nanas Against Fracking here from Blackpool. The Bristol Resistance. Woo! The riot, Justice for Bristol. Yes. Protesters, yay! So you're going to be hearing a lot of good news, and good struggles and fights here today. So let me pass on to Crystal, who's going to co-chair here.
Hi there, great to see so many faces. Faces we recognise and faces we don't, which is great. New ones, new people joining us. As a Global Women's Strike, we submitted a set of demands. We were invited to, I think most organisations were invited to put their demands forward for XR's Unite to Survive. I just thought it might be useful if you heard a few of the demands that we put forward. We began with Global Women's Strike putting forward the demand for a care income for mothers and other carers of all genders and identities who do the work of 1. Caring for people of every age and condition, 2. Protecting and regenerating the land so it restores the water cycle on which the climate depends, 3. Defending human rights and the natural world, 4. Surviving and resisting the climate change which we did not cause, starting with those of us in the global south. And that is really important, and it is really important that we begin with women and children who are doing this work day in, day out, 24/7. We also had a demand from Payday, which is the men's network, which works closely with the Global Women's Strike. Their demand is to end the arms production and trade which makes war a most profitable business. Yes. They kill, maim, destroy, pollute and impoverish all life on the planet. That's a fantastic demand, and it's fantastic that we have a men's network supporting us, because that is a different kettle of fish to what's going on over the road there. And there was a demand order also from the Global Women Against Deportations, which is a coalition of organisations based at Crossroads Women's Centre which do anti-deportation work and have done since the mid-70s. It includes All African Women's Group, it includes Legal Action for Women, Women Against Rape and Women of Colour in the Global Women's Strike. And our demand is people whose survival and livelihoods are threatened by the climate emergency must have access to safety including by crossing borders, and to the wealth of those who caused the emergency. Neither race, religion, gender, disability, nationality, or age should exclude anyone from the protection and support they need. And that's universal. That includes us all, whoever we are, whether we've got papers or not. And the final demand, I think also, Invisible probably put one in, but I don't have it on my sheet, so hopefully you'll raise yours. Women of colour in Global Women's Strike demand no criminalisation of public protest.
Yes.
Abolish new powers in the police order bill. And repeal those already introduced in the Police, Crime, Courts and Sentencing Act. So we have our work cut out, but it is absolutely possible for us to do it. And today is part of that. So, shall we welcome our first speaker?
Yes.
Thank you, Crystal. Nanas Against Fracking.
We come with a message of what it was like to win. That we fought for 12 years to get fracking stopped in this country. Now, admittedly, the earthquakes did the stopping for us. But if we hadn't have been on their case and raising the alarm for all that time with our residents and our friends, we would never have been able to get that stopped. So it can be done, and protest does work. We did 1,000 days non-stop at a fracking site, stopping trucks. Stopping trucks and ensuring that their share price crashed, that their supply chain pulled out and wouldn't supply them, and that for every arrest we had, we publicised that and got sympathy and understanding from the people nearby. We won our credibility, so we know it can be done. But when we think about the problems we're facing today, where do we start? Where do we start? You know, the cab driver just now said the immortal words of, well, a woman's work is never done. And wouldn't you just kill for it to be done? The number of times people have said to me, well, what will you do if you don't win? And I know there is nowhere to go until we do.
That's right.
Because as a mother and a grandmother, unless I can iron out what the problems are in the future, I will have failed in my duty of care. So to me, this is an obligation that I cannot walk away from. And I know everyone feels the same. Yes. We don't just care for our own. We care to make the world a better place for everyone. Yes. And I raise my voice twice as loud here for the women of the Global South, the grandmothers who can't do what I can do because they are kept in the dark, they are kept quiet, but they are already feeling the effects. We are in such a privileged place, and we think that this is privileged, and yet you look at our democracy, and what interaction do we have with that? What power, what manipulation do we have when once every 5 years we get to vote from someone who lives in the same polluted pool and came from the same place? So yes, we are in a privileged position, but that is rapidly deteriorating, and unless we continue to do things like this, we will slip further and slide further to the point where the risks to us as activists will be every bit as bad as they are in countries unlike ours. So if I was asked to call for anything today, I would say to stop listening to the naysayers who tell you you're just an upper-class privileged person protesting, or you're too lower class and lazy, that's why you're protesting, or you're being paid by Russia, that's why you're protesting, and that your protest is too organised or too disorganised. Bugger them. You are here as an individual, not as a group. And as an individual, you are here because you give a damn, be proud, and that unites us all. Thank you.
Oh, great speech to kick us off. Thank you very much. Okay, there's another victory, by the way. Dominic Raab was gone. And finally, it's not called the Bullingdon Club for nothing. Real bullies they are in there. I think it's appropriate to ask our sisters from Bristol to come and give us A few words about the organising and the campaigning. Again, something that's very invisible and that we all need to know about is what is happening to our young people who are being criminalised. Let's welcome Heidi!
Let me hold your platform.
Hello there! Hey, nice to see everybody. My name is Heidi Gedge. I am the mother of Mariella Gedge Rogers, who together with hundreds of other people took to the streets in March 21 to protest after the draconian police crime and sentencing bill, as well as to vent their anger for the Sarah Everard case, to stand up for our fundamental freedom and civil liberties and the right to protest. This started as a peaceful protest but soon turned violent with the arrival of the overpowering riot police, who went in heavy-handedly, and hundreds of protesters, a lot of whom were young women, were subject to their violent attacks. Protesters were unlawfully struck with batons, bladed with riot shields, had their eyes sprayed with pepper and had the dogs let loose on them. Some protesters were knocked unconscious, others battered and bruised and dragged to the ground, and even some were hospitalised. My daughter saw others being attacked and trying to defend each other against the police. She attempted to stand up for herself and others and was pinned to the ground in an unprovoked attack by 3 police officers. Traumatised and fearing for her life with her head pushed into the gutter, her thoughts were of Sarah Everard and George Floyd, who died at the hands of the police. Mariella was one of the first people who tried at the beginning of 2021. Her original charge was violent disorder, but she was charged by riot by the CPS, which we suspect interference from the Home Secretary. She was found guilty and sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. People get lesser sentences for manslaughter, firearms officers, or rape. Mariella's sentence is disproportionate and unfair. She has been in prison now for a year, and I cannot imagine what it must be like to be locked up. To be controlled and prohibited from doing what you want to do. I only know what it's like to be a mother, who for the first time in my life I can't make it right. I've had to stand by and watch her being portrayed as a dangerous criminal in the press, had her charge unjustly changed to riot by the corrupt political system, and unfairly found guilty by a biased jury, poisoned by a brutal misogynistic judge. I ask myself constantly, why was she sent to prison? And why are none of the violent police officers punished for their part in the demonstration? The long-term repercussions have been immense and smack the true vengeance by the state, as well as their meddling in the judicial system. Over 50 people have been charged so far, many of them with riot. 34 people have been sentenced to over 100 years in jail. Riot is a draconian charge that carries a maximum term of 10 years. Many of those charged simply acted in self-defense and simply pushed or kicked out against violent police assaulting them and their friends. And you can look at other more serious disturbances in the past where the riot charge was not brought. This just looks like an assault on our legitimate right to protest and a deliberate attempt to silence dissent. These cases have had a massive chilling effect on those thinking about protesting in the future, but we will not let them win. I know I will never stop protesting until we get justice. I am proud of each and every one of them who stood up for themselves and protected others against the brutal attack by the police. They are an inspiration to us all. We are living in dangerous times. Our children stood up for the right to freedom of speech and were locked up for it. Now the government has succeeded in bringing in the policing bill, and they are in the process of changing the public order bill. Just like the fascists in Nazi Germany and the current authorities in China, they seem determined to silence legitimate protest. And now the Met Office being exposed daily for having 1,500 corrupt, sexist, misogynistic and racist officers in their ranks. Avon and Somerset police should be investigated for their tainted evidence given at the Kill the Bill trials. The police also claim they sustained fractures, broken bones and injuries at the Kill the Bill protest, which were later retracted as untrue. I've been campaigning for justice and to drop the riot charge and free the prisoners. Well, it seems the latest cases have had the riot charge dropped and the option to plead guilty to lesser sentences, which means they won't get a fair trial and will probably get some jail time, but at least they won't be hammered with an outrageously disproportionate sentence of 5.5 years like Mariella. So what are they saying? That suddenly they are not rioters now? Not that they ever were? This miscarriage of justice has been unfair, inconsistent and unjust, and it's time to review all the cases and give everyone the same choice, or freedom. We set up a campaign called Justice for the Bristol Protesters with some of the parents and supporters, and we are committed to work together to raise the awareness and change the narrative and get our message out that Mariella, Jasmine York, Charlie May Osborne, Indigo Bond, Rose and Arthur Lazarus, Ryan Reynolds, to name a few, that these young people are not criminals, they are victims. Political prisoners let down by an archaic legal system and corrupt government. Justice for Bristol Protesters aims to restore the reputations of our children and of all the Bristol protesters and get them the justice that they deserve.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we are from, as you see our banner behind, the Women Care network. Quite a network of people here have been planning to have this speak out, and particularly we wanted to highlight the massive cuts that are coming down in benefits for parents, for mothers, especially single mothers, and also for people with disabilities, in order for them to be able to save money from our survival money to be able to pay for their fossil fuel and oil subsidies. We'll be giving more information about that. But anyway, we next would like to welcome, if you would like to have a slot on the speak out, come and let Chris and I know, and we would be glad to introduce you to do that. But next is Claire from the Women with Disabilities group, Winvisible.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm Claire from Winvisible, Women with Visible and Invisible Disabilities. We are a multiracial grassroots group. Some of our sisters are here and hopefully will speak later, and others like Kalechi and Sarifa have sent WhatsApp voice messages which we'll play a bit later. Yes, so we just come from the DWP picket with XR Disabled Rebels and the XR grandparents and elders are there in numbers outside the DWP protesting against the cuts to benefits. We don't believe the government's hype about abolishing the hated work capability assessment, because what they're planning to do is tie the disability addition to another benefit which fewer people get. So it means up to a million people will lose out from the changes that they're planning. As disabled women and disabled mothers, we're opposed to the crackdown on mothers and the harsher sanctions. Because of the cost of living, those of us who can take on wage work already have. Those who can't include disabled mothers, mothers of disabled children, women and children fleeing domestic violence who need time to recover and time to establish ourselves in a new home with our children who need our presence and reassurance. Mothers are cut off benefit, but mothers must never be cut off benefit. Hurting mothers hurts children. They have killed thousands of people. Among them we remember Elaine Morrill, Lillian Oluk and her baby Lynn Matumba, who starved to death when Medway Council stopped their vouchers because the Home Office had turned down Lillian's asylum claim. Philippa Day took an overdose when her PIP was refused and her son was left without his mother. Jodie Whiting, whose mother Joy Dove has recently won a legal challenge for a second inquest which will examine the role of the DWP that cut off Jodie, who missed a face-to-face appointment because she was in hospital with pneumonia. We're against the raising of pension age and forcing women in their 60s to job search. Women in their 50s and 60s are absolutely desperate and can't believe they're being asked to job search at their time in life. In poorer areas, worn out after years of unwaged work and hard jobs which harm our health, women need disability benefits around 10 years earlier than in better off places. We fought against the forced prepay meters, where we get charged more and which are not accessible if you're unable to go out to the shop or top up via the internet. And we have won some concessions in the Ofgem Code of Practice about so-called vulnerable customers. And we'll be supporting Helen Timpson on Tuesday at the Court of Appeal, who is challenging the forced deductions from benefit orchestrated by the profiteer energy companies in cahoots with the DWP. I wanted to pay tribute to the women of Bhopal today. We're focusing on climate change, but the pesticides and the bombs which are made of pesticides must be highlighted as well. Nearly 40 years ago, there was an explosion at a pesticide factory in Bhopal in India that was owned by Union Carbide, which was then acquired by Dow Chemical, the same multinational company which makes pesticides, made Agent Orange, which was used to bomb Vietnam, and other things which are poisoning the earth. The plant has never been cleaned up, but the women are still fighting for justice, for compensation, for clean water, and for remediation of the soil, to improve the soil so that it is fit to grow plants on again. So we'll play the other messages a bit later. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Claire. So don't be shy, step up. You just open your mouth and it flows, you can hear it. And our next speaker is from Payday Men's Network, and we're hoping to hear some of the work that you guys have been doing in support of and against the military. Let's welcome Ben.
Thank you sisters. We're very, very glad to be here with you today, and we're very glad also to work with the Global Women's Strike as a network of men. We've been campaigning for many years against the military and in support of refuseniks, in support of men who refuse to go to war. Now, the military, I think it's obvious, when the military engage in a war, there's a lot of destruction around. They're destroying buildings, they're destroying human life, but sometimes we forget that they also destroy animals and destroy the land, pollute, especially since a lot of nuclear weapons have been used. You know, depleted uranium has been used, for example, in the war in Iraq, and as a result, 90% of the country is now in a way to become a desert. And as a result, people have to import their food because they cannot grow their food because the military destroy the land. So this is what the military does in time of war. But even if they don't go to war, they are really sucking resources and polluting the world with jets. You know, a lot of fuel, for example, is used in aircraft or other, you know, military equipment. I was shocked to hear that the US is the biggest polluter in the world. And one of the reasons for that is that they are everywhere. The US has got 800, yes, you heard it, 800 military bases outside the US. Who knew that? And wherever they go, they pollute, and they leave behind them a polluted land and a polluted air and a polluted water.
Yes.
But not only that they pollute, but they're also protecting the polluter. And I think that is very important to remember. You know, the war in Iraq was a war to get hold of the oil. So the military was absolutely instrumental to continue that industry that we now want to stop, you know. So that's another reason why we are campaigning against the military. I wanted to say something about Israel because Israel is a very militarized country. Israel is also a country that has developed a lot of weapons, and in fact, they have used the Palestinian people as guinea pig. Okay, they are using them to test their weapon, and then they could sell them, saying that the weapon have been tested on in real time, in real situation. So we are denouncing the Zionism, who are developing this repression and selling it all over the world. And I think that's quite important to tell. Finally, I want to say why we are campaigning with women. Because we often, people will see soldiers as men, which is true in most countries. In some places, however, for example in Israel, women are also compelled to join the military. And we've noticed that those who refuse to join the military are very often women in Israel. Women and children are the most of the victims in war are women and children. I think we have to remember that. And we are campaigning with women because we know that behind every soldier who refuses to go to war, behind every opponent to war in the military, there are women. Whether they are sisters, mothers, aunties, girlfriends, we have seen it ourselves. Whenever we've been supporting soldiers who refuse to go to war, we've seen women being the most reliable, the most determined defender of the refusal of the military and the war. So this is why we are campaigning with women, and this is why we are glad to be here today to campaign for a care income, because this is what we want fundamentally. We want the money out of the military industrial complex into our women's hand, because we know that women are caring for everyone and caring for the soil and the planet, and this is what we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benoit. From sort of Devon and Cornwall, if I'm right, who've done a fantastic protest recently against the poverty and the hunger of children and their mothers, especially.
Hello, is that working? Yeah, so, yes, that's okay. So, yes, on Mother's Day, some mothers from actually all over the country, we came together to go on hunger strike. This was because there are so many children and mothers that are going without food, and so much food poverty across the UK and also globally. And as we know that the situation is escalating, and this is just going to be getting worse with climate change, and that our own children, whatever their position at the moment, they are going to be affected in the near future if action doesn't happen. So our calls to action, our demands are around food poverty in the UK, where we know that 1 in 4 young mothers are having to skip meals in order to feed their children. This is wrong. We are one of the richest countries. I think we're the 6th richest nation, and yet we have children that are going hungry and missing their meals, going to school with empty packed lunch boxes. It's absolutely outrageous. And, you know, there's so much that could be done about this. You know, if we just tax the richest people, the 1% richest people, by 1%, there would be, you know, billions of pounds to support what needs to be done, the changes that need to be happening. At the moment, the fossil fuel companies in this country for every £1 they pay in tax, they can reclaim 91 pence back if they are reinvesting that into the destruction of our future, which is in reinvesting in fossil fuel exploration and development. It's criminal. So this is what we are calling for that to be a true windfall tax and for it not to be reinvested in the destruction of our future. Our other call is around the global situation. Every 11 seconds, a child globally is dying from starvation and malnutrition. We know from the UN that there is enough funds, enough resources to feed everybody on this planet. This is a political choice, and it's something that needs to end. It's something that needs to change. And I, as a mother, am heartbroken. It doesn't matter whether we're white, whether we're black, whatever the situation, if we lose our child, it's bloody devastating. And we need to be changing this. It is not okay. I am not okay that children are starving to death. I think we can all do something different about our own lifestyles, and we need political will to change this. So that's why we did a hunger strike, which was for 6 days, and we are continuing. So there will be petitions. Please sign them, please share them. We're going to be next outside Westminster, outside Parliament on, I think it's Wednesday the 25th of May. So do come and join us, and do come and get involved. Whether you're a mother or not, we are calling to action. Do check us out. It's the Mother's Manifesto, and we have demands on there which address both poverty in the UK and also poverty globally. Thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you, sisters from Mother's Manifesto. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there. Okay, so yes, many good points there, in particular the whole question of billionaires. And we say here, pay us, not billionaire polluters. And we particularly have to get rid of the billionaire over the road there, who is telling us how much we should live on. That is an outrage. It's a scandal. The fact is that all of the money that they wasted on PP, I had a figure, 1 billion to settle the junior doctors' strike. 37 billion wasted on PPE that they burnt and polluted us with. That is an outrage, and these are the kind of things that are being hidden from us. And this is why we need this Speak Out. And I know that our next sister is Nina from the Global Women's Strike, who's going to say something about the Global South, which is really, really crucial we hear.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. It's delightful to be here as part of this mass protest, because this is really what we need. We need a protest so massive that we can actually stop the oil and stop the gas, and most importantly, stop the subsidies. These people would not be able to go on without the subsidies. Now, and that's our money. It's our money that's going to them. Now, I'm originally from Argentina, and the Global South, as we all know, is paying the highest price for the destruction that these murderous companies are causing. We're dying there. Temperatures, even in Spain, are getting up to 45 and 50 degrees. You know, to a point where you just cannot survive. And what are they doing? They are carrying on as if nothing is happening. Now, the nanas, your message is the best one and the one we need to hear over and over again. You won against fracking, and we can win. Now in Argentina, we had this banner, Women Care, which a whole set of mothers and grannies and others got together to decide what we wanted on our banner, because we know that it is women all over the world who are at the forefront of protecting life. Because we give life and then we protect it. That is the first work that we do. We are overwhelmingly the carers all around the world. So we wanted to make that visible, and in the movement, it is women who have been predominantly active and fearless in fighting against climate change. Now, I just want to mention that Argentina had a terrible dictatorship where 30,000 people were disappeared in the 70s and 80s. And the mothers and the grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo, which is the equivalent of Downing Street, campaigned for years to find out what had happened to their loved ones. And we won over 1,000 military people tried and in prison for their crimes. You can't get justice if you carry on. And their motto was, the only struggle you lose is the one you abandon. And we are always holding on to that. Now we want to claim those subsidies. The sister here said about 91% of every pound they pay in tax, they get back. But most of it they don't pay in tax. So it's even much worse than that, because we know that they hardly pay any tax. And we know that there's $1.8 trillion every year globally going in subsidies to the most destructive and polluting industries, including agribusiness, which is also killing us by killing the soil and poisoning the food that we eat. So we want that money back. And today, as from the Global South, I want to remember our dear sister here, Liz Hilton, who very sadly and devastatingly, for those of us who knew her and loved her and worked with her, died a few days ago, completely unexpectedly. She was an Australian, but she lived in Thailand for 30 years and was part of the sex worker organization Empower there. And she was also one of the coordinators of the Women Human Rights Collective in Thailand, which brought together 17 different struggles, different sectors of people, rural sex workers, people opposing mining, people reclaiming the land, natural farmers, fisheries, the slums, all kinds of different people, women. It was all women. And they all decided that they wanted a care income because that's what would change their situation the most. And Liz, today, as we grieve for you, we know that you would tell us, carry on, be bad. She always said, be bad. That's right. And she was a bad girl of the best kind. And a real example to us all. And we miss you, but we will carry on and you will be present, presente, always with us. To Liz and to the struggle. Presente. I want to invite our sister from Peru, Lourdes Huanca. We have a great pleasure here to invite our sister who will speak in Spanish, and I will translate for her. Now, I'm going to tell you her organization, first of all, in English. Okay, Lourdes Huanca is the president of FENMU Carinap, a feminist organization whose mission is to organize and represent rural, artisan, indigenous, Afro-descendant, and wage workers in Peru to empower and strengthen their capacities in the social, economic, political, and environmental spheres in defense of individual and collective rights, respecting and recovering their ancestral and cultural heritage. Okay, Lourdes Huanca.
Muchas gracias. Muy buenos días. A nombre de la Federación de Mujeres Campesinas, el agradecimiento rotundo de estar en este país tan hermoso y la solidaridad y sororidad entre mujeres y entre pueblo.
Okay, so she's very glad to be here in this beautiful country and to be sharing solidarity and sisterhood.
Para nosotras como pueblos indígenas, mujeres y hombres, en estos momentos en el Perú tenemos un gobierno cívico-militar, genocida y asesino.
As indigenous people, women and men at this moment in Peru, we have a genocidal government which is military and as well as parliamentary.
Tenemos más de 80 hermanos y hermanas muertas, asesinadas, masacradas con balas del ejército.
More than 80 people, 80 comrades have been killed, have been murdered, have been shot by the military.
¿Cuál es la razón? ¿Por qué nos están matando? Por defender nuestro derecho de una gobernabilidad, de una democracia participativa, en haber elegido un presidente del pueblo, campesino, indígena, productor.
And why is this happening? We are being punished because we exercise our democratic right to elect a president who's a campesino, a rural indigenous person who was promoting a participatory democracy.
La diferencia que hoy está preso políticamente es porque no se ha vendido a las grandes empresas mineras, petroleras que destruyen a nuestra Pachamama, a nuestra tierra.
And the reason he's now in prison is because he didn't sell out to the companies, to the oil companies, to the mining companies, to all the interests that destroy the Pachamama, the Mother Earth.
El presidente Pedro Castillo dijo en su propuesta que iba a revisar las concesiones mineras porque los ríos están siendo contaminados, la tierra está siendo esterilizada, los hijos y las hijas tienen plomo en la sangre.
He said that he was going to look again at all the contracts to the mining companies because the rivers are being poisoned and are dying, the soil is dying and people are being contaminated.
Mencionó y dijo de nuestras propuestas también que los hijos de los pueblos indígenas, mujeres y hombres, tendrían la oportunidad de estudiar gratuitamente en las universidades. Presentaron una propuesta de ley legislativa y el Poder Legislativo lo archivó esa propuesta.
He also had a proposal that people from indigenous rural backgrounds, people who don't have the money, would get free education, free university education.
Lo que quiero decir, compañeras y compañeros, hermanas y hermanos, la fuerza de los pueblos indígenas es la lealtad a nuestra Pachamama, es la lealtad a nuestra cultura, es la lealtad a nuestros pueblos.
What I want to say is that the power, the strength of our indigenous people is our loyalty to the Pachamama, to the Mother Earth.
Necesitamos con fuerza luchar el Apia Yala de los diferentes países, defender a la tierra, defender los ríos, defender nuestras culturas. Se llama solidaridad y unidad de los pueblos.
We have to carry on to struggle to defend our rivers, to defend los pueblos,
unidad de los pueblos.
And the unity to defend our rivers, to defend the whole environment, and for the unity, the solidarity between people.
El ejército de Estados Unidos está penetrando en todos los países. Se creen dueños y señores, pero Pero se equivocaron con los pueblos indígenas, se equivocaron con nosotros, porque le daremos la batalla, cueste la vida y nos cueste, pero el futuro es la unidad y la unidad de nosotros.
The army, the United States military have penetrated everywhere. They think they can rule the world, but they're making a mistake because the indigenous people are ready to fight them and take them on. And the unity of the people, our unity, will defeat them.
El hambre, la miseria que nos pone y nos implanta este capitalista neoliberal que solamente cree que la riqueza a las personas se le mide porque tienes plata. Para el pueblo indígena no es así. Para el pueblo indígena primero es tu calidez humana, después es la plata.
Capitalism believes that money rules. Money is the most important thing, is all that matters. But for indigenous people, it's not like that. Money does not come first.
Necesitamos aprender a desaprender el yoísmo, el individualismo. Necesitamos articular fuerza con todas las organizaciones. Los derechos humanos, una vida digna para todos y todas nosotros, hombres, mujeres, jóvenes, ancianos. Y eso es unidad. No nos olvidemos de eso. Unidad para forjar, unidad para luchar, unidad para resistir, pero con la transparencia y la realidad, lealtad hacia adelante.
Okay, what she said that we have to learn to unlearn individualism. Yes. And we have to learn to get together and to fight in solidarity and with unity as people, indigenous people, but as people in struggle.
Estamos luchando en nuestro país, Perú, por una nueva constitución.
Okay, we are fighting in Peru for a new constitution.
Una constitución plurinacional paritaria.
Okay, a constitution plurinational and based on parity.
¿Por qué? Porque los pueblos indígenas, afros, mujeres, jóvenes, ancianos, tenemos que ser parte de cómo se tiene que gobernar el país.
Because the indigenous people, the people of African descent, women, young people, everyone, have to be part of deciding how our country is governed.
Cómo distribuir nuestra riqueza de nuestro país.
How to distribute the wealth of our country.
Ese poder legislativo y ese poder ejecutivo también tenemos que ser parte de ello.
We have to be part of the parliament, and we have to be part of the executive power as well.
Tenemos que articular la unidad de la fuerza de la Via Yala. Tenemos que luchar por los derechos de una vida digna para todos y todas, también mis hermanas y hermanos migrantes que viven en estos países de Europa.
We have to fight for a decent life for everyone, and also for immigrant people who are here from Peru and from other countries.
Eso significa fuerza, fortaleza, unidad, solidaridad, desprendimiento de cada uno de nosotros.
Okay, strength, solidarity, power, commitment from each of us.
Muchas gracias por escucharme. Aquí estamos para seguir luchando. Luchar y luchar. Somos semillas autóctonas, criollas, que damos esperanza para la vida, fuerza, la unidad para avanzar. Gracias, compañeras y compañeros.
We are here to fight. We are seeds, native seeds.